You ever have one of those nights where everything you've built feels like it's about to be ripped away? Yeah, that happened to me out of nowhere. In the middle of a freezing Texas night, my entire ranch was under siege, and the woman leading the charge was this clipboard-wielding nightmare named Susan Blackwell. Let me back up a sec. I just moved out here to Willow Creek Estates, swapping the chaos of Chicago for the wide-open plains and a peaceful life after 15 years on the force. Grandpa left me this ranch, a legacy 3 generations deep, complete with a pond he nurtured and cattle I raised like family. Life was quiet until 2 a.m. hit. That's when I woke up to this mechanical racket, sharp and out of place. I peeked out the window, heart sinking 8 people in black gear, treating my ranch like a battlefield, loading my cattle into trucks with cold precision. At the center of it all was Susan, strutting around like a general, clipboard in hand, her smile colder than the frost biting through the November night. "What the hell are you doing?" I yelled, bursting outside, boots crunching on gravel. She didn't miss a beat, shooting back, "Emergency Directive 742C. The HOA is purging all livestock infractions. This land is communal, subject to oversight." Communal? My ranch? No way. Grandpa's name was on every deed. This was private property. She slapped down a paper that looked fresh off a printer, claiming it was a 1987 pact making the HOA king of this land. The signature looked off, seals too crisp for something decades old, but her crew didn't care. They pushed through, rounding up my cows, draining my pond. The same one Grandpa built with a careful balance of fish and plants. I stood there, disbelief burning into rage. "That's theft," I snapped. "You can't just—" "Eradication, not theft," Susan cut in, smug. "Noise complaints, odors, property values, all at risk. We have court orders." "Court orders?" I demanded IDs, scrutinized the documents, fake, all of it. Years on the force taught me how to spot a forgery. They laughed, their smug confidence cutting through the cold air. "Interfere, face obstruction charges," Susan warned. Cameras rolled, recording every brutal second, ready to spin this into their victory. When they left behind destruction, ruined cattle, a pond turned to sludge, my family's legacy trampled. But Susan had made one mistake. She didn't know who she was messing with. I spent the next hours digging through Grandpa's files, unearthing the truth hidden beneath forged paperwork and lies. The 1987 agreement was a sham, a modern forgery designed to strip away my rights. Then David Rares, an old Chicago PD partner and my soon-to-be deputy chief here, showed up with tacos and questions. Together, we found patterns. Susan wasn't just enforcing rules. She was clearing prime land for developers tied to a shadowy figure named Victor Harrington. Families were being pushed out on bogus violations, land sold off cheap to shell companies. Susan's online bragging videos started to vanish as backlash grew. People were waking up. At the HOA Emergency Summit, I played the outsider, watching as Susan tried to justify her actions, painting ranchers like me as villains harming the community. She threw drone photos, fake stats, and legal threats. But when I stood up and asked for the original 1987 deed, her confidence faltered. Then Evelyn Carter, a 73-year-old ranch elder, stepped in, a voice of reason and history. She called out the corruption, revealing Grandpa's decades-old fight to protect this land from vultures like Susan and her developer friends. Murmurs turned to uproar. Some residents sided with Susan, blinded by promises of progress and jobs, but the cracks were showing. Behind the scenes, I uncovered rigged HOA elections, phantom voters, and a slush fund of hundreds of thousands funneled into Harrington's empire. Susan's harassment was systematic, targeting ranchers to pave the way for condos and shopping centers. I called Susan at dawn. "Explain your ties to Harrington," I demanded. Denials fell apart under pressure. "You don't get progress if you can't sacrifice," she spat. Unaware I was recording every word. By noon, legal teams clashed. Harrington's lawyer tried to silence me with a massive defamation suit. Irony, considering his past DUI and assault case I once prosecuted back in Chicago. Evelyn arrived with Grandpa's original deed and a manifesto from the 1950s, warning future generations about precisely this kind of corporate greed. That afternoon, Susan held a victory party on my ruined ranch. Media and developers parading around, contracts signed with Harrington's banner waving. I stood outside in the pouring rain, badge shining under the storm, newly sworn in as Chief Alex Thompson. But the fight wasn't over. Within months, David and I exposed the fraud ring, forged documents, and racketeering. Susan screamed. Harrington stayed silent. The media frenzy was deafening. 6 months later, the ranch flourished again. Cattle roamed freely, the pond shimmered with life, and Evelyn helped reform the HOA into a community-driven board. Susan got 4 years. Harrington 6. Justice? Sure. But the real win was proving that power corrupts when unchecked. This whole saga ignited a fierce debate: HOA tyranny versus community rights. Was my vigilantism necessary, or did I cross a line chasing justice? I leave that to you. What do you think? Was I a hero protecting a legacy, or just another cop playing judge and jury? Share your thoughts below. I want to hear your take on where law ends and personal justice begins. So, after the dust settled and the court battles cooled down, you'd think things would smooth out, right? Nope. That was just the beginning. The kind of fight that digs its claws deep and drags you into the dirt even when you think you're done. See, Susan Blackwell didn't just fade away with her sentence. She left behind a tangled mess of broken trust, bruised neighbors, and a community split right down the middle. The HOA wasn't magically fixed overnight, either. Evelyn, that wise old rancher, stepped up to lead the new board, the reformed HOA, as everyone called it. But even with good intentions, old wounds run deep. Some folks still whispered about the tyranny of homeowners associations, convinced that this whole thing was proof that HOAs are just power-hungry bureaucracies out to ruin small lives. And then there was Victor Harrington. 6 years in prison didn't erase the shadow he cast over our little town. The land he tried to seize was still vulnerable, a tempting prize for the next shark lurking in the water. I remember driving out past the edge of the ranch one evening, watching the sunset bleed orange over the fields, thinking about how fragile peace really is. But what stuck with me most was the human cost. Families uprooted, friendships broken, people turning on neighbors, all because of greed dressed up as community progress. You know what I mean? Like, who gets to decide what progress really means? Is it developers building condos and strip malls? Or is it preserving a legacy, a way of life that doesn't come with a price tag on every blade of grass? There was one moment that hit me harder than anything, a surprise twist that changed how I saw the whole fight. It was Sarah, a young woman who'd grown up next door, her family forced out by one of Susan's fake violations months before the big showdown. She approached me quietly at the new HOA meeting, eyes tired but determined. "I'm not here to pick sides," she said. "But I lost my childhood because of all this. And I'm scared the same thing will happen again. Maybe to you, or someone else." Her words hit like a punch. There's always collateral damage, even when you think you're fighting the good fight. That night, I sat on the porch, watching the stars come out one by one, wondering if any of this was worth it. Was I just a cop turned vigilante? Or could someone like me really protect a community from itself? Could justice be served without creating more wounds? But then I thought about Grandpa, his stories, his fights to keep the ranch safe for generations to come. He never gave up, even when the odds were stacked against him. So neither could I. And that's the kicker. Sometimes justice isn't clean. It's messy, complicated, and it asks hard questions about loyalty, sacrifice, and what we're willing to fight for. Susan's fall was satisfying, sure, but the real victory? It's in how a community picks itself back up after being torn apart. Today, the ranch is thriving. The cattle roam under a wide-open sky. The pond reflects peaceful sunsets again, and neighbors share more than just fences. They share trust rebuilt slowly, day by day. But here's where I leave you hanging. Is the power of a single person enough to keep the wolves at bay? Or do communities need to be wary of anyone wielding a badge or a clipboard, no matter how noble their cause sounds? When does fighting for justice cross the line into playing God? I've lived this story, fought the battle, and seen both sides. Now it's your turn. Drop your thoughts below. Do you think I did the right thing, or was I blinded by my own pride? Should HOAs have this much power, or is it time for a new kind of community governance? Let's get the conversation rolling, because these aren't just stories. They're real lives, real struggles, and real choices that shape the places we call home.